Mapping Research Project on Igbo Masks. Amarachi, whenever you're ready.
Thank you everyone for being here. My name is Amarachi Atama, a graduate student in the Museum Studies program of the College of Visual and Performing Arts. Today I am presenting my ongoing research on Igbo mask mapping in the United States and Indigenous conceptualization. You find out that a lot of the knowledge, the intangible knowledge that is embedded in some of the artifacts that we see is lost. And so the interpretation that we continually see begins to be post-colonial or neo-religious interpretation of some of this. This is an ethnographic investigation into the misrepresentation, misconception, and mischaracterization of indigenous Igbo mask artifacts present in some museums in the United States. This research work is set to explain some of the deeper symbolic meanings as relates to Igbo mask and masquerade system. The goal of this research work will be to serve as a navigational guide to scholars, researchers, artists, museum establishments, of course for museum education and interpretation, writers, and of course cultural interpreters, as well as interested lay individuals who just want to know some of these things. So it is very important that while people go to museums and go to other cultural heritage places, they're able to get a holistic knowledge of some of the artifacts they see there. So I will be using quantitative and qualitative because I'm looking at I'm looking at the number of museums, that's why we're mapping it. I'm looking at the number of masks, Igbo masks particularly in those museums. I'm looking at where they are located, which we know that digital archiving started in post-COVID. So a lot of the museums are still trying to come to terms with the digital archiving. So sometimes we see museums, we see they have large number of African collection, we see they have Igbo masks, but the only thing that might make it to their digital spaces will just be one, just to represent the whole collection. Meanwhile, they might be having 50, and each of those masks have their different identities, which is why it is important to visit most of these places and identify with them. So, some of the study questions is, what does the museum have in the African collection? How many masks? How many of these masks are of Igbo origin? How were they acquired, which is very important. When were they acquired? What specific Igbo masquerade type do they represent? What cultural festivals are associated with them? Are they on public display or locked away in storages? When last were they out? Are there representations of these artifacts in digital species? What interpretation are they giving? These are the crucial questions I intend to respond to in this work, which is what made it to be a very vast research. So in the literature review, there has been a vast literature that I have been researching. There are some literatures which we find in some works that are not necessarily on mask, maybe Igbo people and social, but we have some sections on mask, and some of them on mask are approaching it from maybe the performative side, not the holistic overview. While some early European ethnographically classified the African mask as generally primitive kinds of objects, as seen in Harris 2003, there are divergent opinions as to what the Igbo mask system represents. Books, articles, commentaries, documentaries have been published dealing with Igbo mask system, most of it in partly focused on different areas. Some scholars, commentators approach the Igbo mask from performative entertainment point of view. Others lean towards the regulatory function, while others interpret Igbo mask system from the point of view of esoteric dimension. In any case, Igbo mask is an aspect of Igbo cultural heritage, and a vast dig into literature will be explored in the process of this work. A little background into the Igbo people, because not everybody here understands Igbo people, who are they? The quest to establish human origin and migration pattern on Earth has been a topic of intense pedagogical debate. academic fields are replete with these controversies. Historians, ethnologists, naturalists, anthropologists, archaeologists, theologians, geneticists, to mention but a few, have all advanced arguments to trace the evolutionary roots and historical dispersal of humans on Earth. Let's look at some hypotheses as relates to the Igbo origin. So we have the autochthonous hypothesis. These hypotheses are widely accepted by the Igbo people, which believes that the Igbo origin is ancient. It believes that the Igbo people have been in existence where they are now from the beginning of time. This weaves the story of Okpoko, the hornbill, Nnamako, the wife of Eri, and the story of Eri partly. The earth was waterlogged, Elu, the sky, and the sky god Chukwu. There are different parts of this autochthonous hypothesis. Some of it believe that a man fell from heaven. Some of it believe that a farmer was sent to come and start cultivating. But in all of it, the argument is that the Igbo people have been there from the beginning of time. Now we also have the Oriental or Eastern origin hypothesis. This hypothesis of the Igbo supposes that Igbo people migrated from ancient Egypt. Aguileri, 2014, conjectured that Eri, the supposed ancestor of Igbo people, was a part of a tribe in Israel who resided in Egypt during the period of Hebrew exile in that country. And then we have the confluence of the River Niger hypothesis, which we mostly find on Wikipedia. These say that the Igbo people belong to a group of African language classified as Kwa. Linguistic history recognizes that this group of language belong to the Niger-Congo family. Those languages under this classification are said to originate around Niger-Benue confluence, and that Igbo people migrated out of the area until they settled in the current place in Igbo land. However, this research is not focused on the origin of the Igbo people, so we are going to move on. But generally speaking, the Igbo people generally, in terms of geographical settlement, are found in the southeastern part of today's Nigeria. They are one of the major ethnic groups in the country. Igbo people are known to have creativity and artistry, which is reflected in some of the 7th and 8th century AD Ibuku art we find in a lot of our museums. So let's go to the mask. So like so many other indigenous groups around the world, the concept of mask occupies a very significant position in the Igbo historical, cultural, cosmological, and metaphysical evolution. Nevertheless, it is crucial to note that without proper contextualization, it is practically impossible to truly grasp the symbolic meaning which these masquerades represent, especially in pre-colonial Igbo society. Because a lot of these masks in museums were taken from the colonial, pre-colonial times. So most of them are not even recreated today. So as far as Igbo people are concerned, there is no mask without masquerade, and there is no masquerade without mask. So each mask that you see represents a masquerade. It only became a mask when it was removed and taken away from the original place. Without that, we don't have celebration of mask on its own because it is attached to a masquerade. So which means that it represents a people's huge cultural heritage. The masquerade culture is weaved into the fabric of the society. They play different roles in the society, such as entertainment, social regulatory functions, instilling law and order, and societal mirroring. There are some masquerades that, so a certain time in the year, they go to people's houses and tell them everything you've done in a year, they will let you know. So because of that, people tend to behave well. Because if you don't, towards that time of the year, you will be in your room one night and they will tell you everywhere you've gone to, everything you've done, and all of that. So, which today is beginning to die and people behave anyhow they like. So in an attempt to provide a description of the Igbo notion of mask and masquerade, Onyeneke in 1987 reported that the concept represents spirits in visible form. Masks are indicators that the presence of the unseen or spirits are all around us. we believe that masks represent ancestors and the spirits who have gone long ago. They are there to be with us. So although the general word for masquerade is Mmọnwụ, there are multiple ways that the Igbo people pronounce the word as in dialectical tongues. So we have Mau, we have Ma as the Nsukka people, we have Mau, we have Mo, Mau, and Mo. But funny enough, the museums always use MWO, like Mo. I don't know what that is, but I am still trying to trace if there is a group of Igbo people or Igbo society that address it as that, because that is what you see everywhere. Because that is what you see in a lot of the old documents. And we do know that in the colonial times, a lot of our words were changed because the colonialists couldn't pronounce, some of our letters are in twos, so they couldn't pronounce them, and so they pronounce them according to what they had. So the MWO is what I see in a lot of the museums. I'm still trying to trace back the dialect in Igbo that has that. Otherwise, that becomes a major problem because Nwa doesn't mean anything in Igbo language as of now. So the Igbo society masquerade system requires mask wearers and participators to be virtuous and to uphold certain standard of ordinary. The spiritual and moral law that governs the Igbo universe. This is why there must be initiates into the masquerade cult. Oyeneke in 1987 clearly summarizes this point of view that the power of the masquerade include the authority to order humans around without challenge. They have thus the right to compel people to join in some communal work, to exact fines, and even to seize property by force. So the mask system is such a way that everybody have respect for masks, although because the knowledge of what this mask represents is beginning to die, we see today where people use masquerade to perpetrate some very dangerous crimes by flogging people until they bleed and all of those, which wasn't the original design of these masquerades. The Igbo Mmọnwụ embodies the idea of spirit manifestation, as in Njoku 2019, also agrees that among the Igbo people, Mmọnwụ is widely accepted as the manifest spirit or the manifestation of disembodied spirits. So the cult of Mmọnwụ is conduit through which gods, deities, deceased ancestors, spiritual tricksters, and other supernatural powers express or vocalize their presence in the human world. These masks appear in different occasions, but mostly during festivals. Some of these festivals, unfortunately, no longer exist, as one of the impacts of colonialism or religious neocolonialism, while most of these masquerades were demonized and tagged evil, while they were taken away and resting in museums. So to make the people hate it, they had to tag it evil, and then when they looked away, all of them were gone. So the festivals which celebrate them began to go into extinct as well. And so is the music, the dance, the folk stories that identify with these masquerades, and historic chants, which luckily I am one of the performers, but we have the masquerade speaking chants. So we have the Mbamumo, where the masquerade talk, and this is embedded with a lot of history. So history of the communities, you see the masquerade chants and tell it, which today we do not see. Chanting is seen as the language of the gods or language of the spirit. So let me mention but a few because it's very important to me. When I started researching into this, it was so heartbreaking, the number of hundreds of festivals that used to exist and no longer exist today. Some of them still do, but many of them do not exist anymore. So we have the Omaba Festival, we have the Uzi Festival, Isuoba Egu Festival, Itutara, Ihanaka Festival, Oku Festival, Aso Festival, Isuoba, Nyudara, Chinwoke na Nwanyi Festival, Chukwu Festival, Odo Festival, Umuada Festival, Nnokuko Festival, Ihuji Festival, Onwa Festival, Onyumonyi Festival, Iguaro, Ikundi, Aju Festival, Iswahia Festival, Ekelani Festival, Ilomo Festival. These are just but a few of the festivals that used to celebrate these masquerades where they come out and the people come out, but today a lot of them are no longer existing. So these festivals allowed for the holistic understanding of the cultural life of a people and celebrate peace and unity. And most importantly, allow for the social function of different institutions of the society, such as the men, the women, the youth, and children. Every group in the Igbo people, have their very authoritative roles. There are things that the youth will be doing and adults do not have a say there. There are things that the women are doing and the men do not have it. You don't even annoy the women because they are seen to be the owners of the land. But today, the opposite is now the effect. So the women are the owners of the land. Even during burials, you cannot just bury the deceased without first pleasing the umuadas, pleasing the women. But today, the opposite is now what we see. Because the cultural institutions that celebrated these authorities are no longer there. So some Igbo masks are carved with elongated horns and huge spiked-up teeth, with which is, appears very scary. Some of these masks have erroneously been described as the devil or Satan. So in the Igbo culture, I would say this: we do not have Satan in the Igbo culture. We have the concept of Mojo, which is the evil spirit. But during the colonial religious time, there was the need to look for something to attach with the devil. And so a masquerade a deity which represented the trickster spirit was chosen. This was also done for the Yoruba people of their Esu. So ours was Ekwensu. Ekwensu was a deity of trickster, but today it is the devil. So, but unfortunately, one of the masquerades which represent the scary feature happened to be what we usually see as Ekwensu. And this is the Mbedike masquerade. So this is it. So we have the Mbedike masquerade, as you can see, that looks scary, not even very scary. And we can see, and then we can see a festival where the masquerade is in the full regalia. But today, whenever you talk about the devil, or even type it on Google looking for Igbo devil, this is what you see. But this is a masquerade. And this mask is in museums. That's Mbedike masquerade is in museums. So that is the funny part. So when the masquerade that is supposed to be a people's culture is the devil, but is sitting in a museum. I don't know which museum we want to bring the devil and keep there. So that becomes the irony why this research is very important. So now let's look at some pre-colonial iconographic symbols and designs that we see on this mask. We start with the color coding. White in Igbo iconography images. The white signifies welcoming, purity, feminine force, new life form, spirituality, transparency, peace. It is mostly sourced from Unzu and the white chalk, which is from a pure clay, and it's used for ritual of invocation, itunzu, when you go to someone's house. So when you go to someone's house and you open your hands and they rub this unzu, it means they welcome you. It means their heart is pure, that you are welcome to our home. Which, if you go to someone's house today and do it, the person might call the police for you. Yeah, because that would be seen like you are trying to do one ritual, you are trying to take my destiny, which is knowledge. The knowledge of some of these practices is very important, which is one of the things I want to. So as we see, most of the masks come with the white face, the white color face. So there was this question of why is it always white? This is because of this, the significance of Unzo. We also have the red, which signifies authority, divinity, and cleansing. This is gotten from wood here, the can wood. We have both red and yellow can wood. As you can see, it's just wood, which is important that many people don't even know that it comes from wood. So when you bring this, they are like, what is this? But it just comes from wood that are grinded. So in the past, this was a major part of skincare. This wood here, if you use it to scrub your skin every day, it becomes very, very smooth. It is like the Asian powder, which helps to smoothen the skin, added in the soap cream like okuma or the cannel in waki. It is mixed with water to treat some skin problems such as acne, eczema, and the rest of it. So, like I said, we have both the yellow and the red camel wood. So the yellow represents fertility, wealth, creation, abundance. And then we go to the black. Spirituality, sacred, non-verbal communications such as mourning, maturity. So when someone is our people say during the rituals, you see them wearing some sackcloths that are painted in black. Black is sourced from charcoal, uli, and okangele, which is a crystal stone that we use for clearing the eyes. So let's talk about one which is very outstanding, the uli. Uli is the ancient decorative art of the Igbo people. It was an art practiced mostly by women in pre-colonial times. It was also non-verbal communication system used as body art, wall art, cloth designs, and moldings. Uli is derived from the plants whose fruits produce the uli pigment. As we see today, this picture, I graciously got it. I didn't know it was still existing anywhere until I was able to source this picture. So we can see some of our buildings and how they use this. Now, when we look at the mask, there is a very outstanding uli design that you will see in almost all Abowomo masks that you find in museums, which is on their hairstyles. And that is this spiral. The spiral is Eke. Agwolago Eke is the python. So it's also called Agwolago in the Igbo culture, which signifies the universal energy of continuity, sacredness, and spirituality. It is the most popular uli ideogram, which you can find on some of our homes, fabrics. Even if you look at this fabric I'm wearing, it's somewhere. You find it in our body art, and also, of course, most of the Igbo masks. You always find this Eke design. One of the most outstanding motifs as seen in most popular Igbo masks found in almost every Igbo society. There might be questions to why Abowomo mask is very popular. Well, Abowomo masquerade used to be an entertainment masquerade, so it was not seasonal. Most of the masquerades are seasonal, but the Abowomo is not seasonal. So you can see it in weddings, burials. It comes out every celebration. You can see the Abowomo. So almost every community has different designs of Abowomo, and which is why when you go to most museums, you see that a particular museum might have 50 Abowomo masks because they were the most popular mask, and it was the mask of entertainment. As to against others, some of the masquerade are for social justice, some of them are for very spiritual invocation reasons. Now, the Abowomo, of course, you know, always comes with the Ojongo hairstyle. This was one of the ancient hairstyles. So if you look at, you always see the spirals in the head, as with the other one. And so with other images you see, they represent something which we intend to dissect it in the process of this research, so that we have a holistic view of what this mask, what are they communicating? Are they necessarily evil, and they are communicating this beauty of life? So the Ojongo hairstyle was a popular hairstyle in pre-colonial era. The hairstyle that women used to celebrate beauty. So you see things like clothes, thread, wood thread, mud, palm oil, camwood, charcoal, wood, beads, feathers, bones, shells. They were all used to make these hairstyles. So before we move ahead, let's look at, this was taken just last week in one of the communities. So this is Abowomo. You will see the mask, just like in one of the pictures I showed, and how it just came out in the community, just entertaining them. Abowomo is a very beautiful. Okay, so let's continue, and then so you can see, just like the mask, just like the Abowomo masquerade, you can see the pre-colonial women graciously carrying their Ojongo hairstyles. And when you look at the hairstyles, you will also find that spirals, because it was a major symbol amongst the Igbo people. So quickly, let's look at a little mapping so far. So with access to required funding, of course, there shall be more field work. I have already started going to some museums, but the plan is to visit at least 10 to 15 museums to not just get data or look at their digital archive, but also to have some physical, because of these intricate details that we need to see to make sure that we are giving it a holistic interpretation. So through collaborative engagement with curators, collection managers, and registrars, I should be able to access the digital archive as well as physical examination of this mask. These visits have already started and we intend to continue. So far, what we've been able to gather from the digital archives, UC Berkeley, California have like 166 Igbo masks from their digital archive. A whole lot of these other museums that I don't need to be mentioning all, but we can see that Seattle Art Museum have like 39 Igbo masks. That's just Igbo mask, not African mask. So we have the National Museum of African Arts in Smithsonian Museum. I was able to go there and we've already started a conversation. They have about 36 masks. We have the Baltimore Museum of Art with 16 masks, and then we have the Museum of World Cultures with 18 masks. In Chicago, we have the Met Museum with 10 masks. So far, we have the Yale University Gallery, which I'm visiting soon, with about 38 Igbo masks. The Carlos Museum, Emory University with 14 masks. I am so happy that some of the larger numbers are seen in institution museums, so which makes it easier because the non-institution museums, the conversation have not been very nice, but they are not very open to allowing access to these artifacts. But the institution museum that understand what research is, they're actually very more open. That's something I've seen so far with my few conversations. So far, this is the data based on digital archive from selected museums in the United States. Digital archiving is new in the field of museum, not necessarily new, but was taken seriously post-COVID times. Other museums have also been struggling with resources to ensure that their thousands of collections make it ready, because this requires a lot of funding. So in as much as we want to see everything on the digital space, it requires a lot of work. Being in the museum studies program, I will tell you that it's not a joke. So it requires a lot of work, it requires funding, it requires professional skills to make sure that you get not just pictures, but quality and representative pictures on their digital archiving. And then some of the websites, when these images are so heavy there, it pull the websites down. So this is why for museums that have like 100,000 artifacts, we have to be considerate, but the conversation continues. In conclusion, this is an ongoing research, and I cannot wait to see what comes out of it at the end of the day. And all photos and video used in this presentation is duly credited to the copyright owners, of course, in the main work. So I acknowledge my supervisor who graciously embraced the idea of this research from the very beginning, and then the museum studies faculty for all the classes and preparing me to go into this. This would have been very scary if not that I'm in this program, you know. And then my research assistants everywhere, both in Nigeria and here. I've been working with a lot of people, other researchers that I've been able to explore, authors and all of people who have done researches. Somebody is in Germany that I've been having Zoom meeting with because he has also worked a little bit on the Igbo mask. So the museums all over, let me do it on video so that they will see me. So the museums all over that are opening their doors, allowing access, and those that I will come to allow access, because very important. So also the Library of Congress, we've been having conversation with the Library of Congress. They've been so gracious. So outside the library, the American Folklife Center, we have a lot of chants and audio work there. So thank you.
Take some questions, Amarachi?
Yes, please.
I have a question. First of all, I'd like to congratulate you on your excellent presentation and very enthusiastic. And I have a question regarding the Igbo masks and what you're doing. So I see that you're marking them, but do you think that it's proper time to propose maybe returning the masks to African museums? And if so, how are you going to do it? Because I come from Tanzania, East Africa, and different to the Igbo mask, we have fossils that were taken during colonial times to Germany, Korea. They've been stored there for many years, but I'm thinking maybe, but this is very far from my field. I study at sciences, so I don't know how to do this. And how do you plan to maybe have the owners of these masks to profit from what these museums are making of all of this rich culture?
Okay, thank you. So the focus of this research is not necessarily on returning the mask, but there have been a lot of strong conversations on decolonization of the museum artifacts, and we've seen a case where the Smithsonian Museum have tried to return some of it, but when it comes to the processes, the legal processes that come with it, you have to work with the government. So it's something that we in the cultural heritage field, we are trying to have this synergy between the advocates, the professionals, and the government to see how these conversations can continue, because it is important. But before that, while that is a very long process, you might start the one for a particular museum today or a particular country, and it takes another 10 years for it to really actualize. But while that is ongoing, it is important that proper conceptualization of interpretation is allowed, so that people come there to learn of the people's culture. While we are talking about returning, the knowledge that comes with these artifacts are very, very important. Because with the knowledge, then the people will even care and love and visit and see these artifacts, knowing that, oh, these artifacts are not holding our destinies. This is what they are. Because of the colonial mind thing, damage that has been done, a lot of these artifacts, you can't even bring it close to the people who own it, because they are now scared of it. They now see that, oh my goodness, it's evil. So how do you start the orientation for them to understand that this is from their culture and this is a rich culture, so that they will have the love and the care for all of this. So it's a conversation that continues, but decolonization and returning of artifacts all over, it has been a long, unending conversation, but we will not get tired.
Yeah, thank you very much, Amarachi. I see this is something you are very passionate about, and I'm excited to hear this. I think I'm going to start off from where you stopped on the issue of preparation of artifacts and some of these things. I think that you had a question of how were these artifacts acquired in
Yes.
Your research question that I don't think you really spoke to, maybe because the research is still ongoing. I think the politics of reparation actually starts from how are these materials acquired.
Yes.
And then from there we can begin to speak to how can we talk about return. It's a very long conversation. For instance, in Edo, there is this crisis between who owns the returned artifact. Is it the government? Is it the traditional institutions? And all of, and it's something I'm very passionate about too, having worked with some of the Igbo ceramics in the University of Ibadan Museum and dealing with all of this disappearance of these ceramics and all of that. So that's my comment on one part. I also have, I think I'm going to take you up on this after this presentation, on the issue of the origin of the Igbo people. I see that you mentioned 3 origins, and you were very dismissive of the one I think I'm.
Okay, please.
Yeah, I'm not going to, we won't go into this deeply, but I think that you were very dismissive of the one that has to do with glottochronology and the issue of people coming from the Niger-Congo region, which I think is the one the archaeologists sort of embrace because it's empirical. So I think that you were very dismissive of that because you described it as, oh, it's something you will see on Wikipedia.
No, so when you come to my main work, the origin alone has almost 15 pages. So, but for the presentation, because this is not for Igbo origin, we just have to.
Yeah, okay, so I'll take you up on that because you also mentioned some very things that are fascinating. You mentioned that some of the marks are called Ekwesu. That issue is called Ekwesu. And Ekwesu issue, I think that these are very aligning things that we can look at in terms of Yoruba and the Igbo culture. And all of Yoruba culture is also said to have moved from the Niger-Congo. So I think that's also something that is very interesting that I would like to discuss with you after this conversation. I was also wondering, in terms of the mask, right, you mentioned that some of them, when you were looking at what they had done the mask with, you mentioned beads at a point, and I was wondering if the production of beads is indigenous to Igbo culture, or I mean, that sort of led to my thinking about what's the effect of the transatlantic trade and the trans-Sahara trade on how these masks are produced. Cultures are dynamic. What was the production like, or what were the masks like before the transatlantic and the trans-Sahara trade, and what are we seeing after these European cultural contacts, right? Yeah, and the last one, I promise, is you mentioned some of these cultures disappearing in terms of intangible heritage, people missing out on some of these festivals and some of these things. It's something I've also seen with religion, with language, right? I was in Kogi area of north central Nigeria at the point, and we've actually met a language that had just one speaker, right? So the speaker was about 70 years old and 80 years old. I assume that you're having the same thing with masks and festivals, and I'm wondering what you are doing to document. I know you are doing a lot in terms of projecting the Igbo tradition and all of that, but I was just wondering what more knowledge you are putting into documenting this intangible heritage that are at risk of disappearing. Thank you.
Okay, let me start from, well, I already answered the one of the origin of the Igbo people. There is none that is dismissive. So this is an academic work, and I'm exploring different hypotheses, which we have a lot of them. When we come to the autonomous hypothesis, for instance, we have like about 4 versions of it, which I intend to, I have sentiments for, but I intend to explore all of it. Yes, I intend to explore all of it because, again, this is an academic work, and the reader should be able to see the different hypotheses that are available. Then, when it comes to bead, we did have our indigenous beads that were made from, we have the ones that are made from achara, which is the bamboo, tiny bamboo cut and the middle of it. So we have wooden beads. We did have shells, and we did have the ones made from udara seed, the black seed and ube seed, and all of that. So there are different types of indigenous beads that we did have before the influx of the exchanges that were done during the colonial trades. And then when it comes to language, yes. So my entire work is actually my journey into the intangible heritage and all of this actually started with the death of language. Even as I dig into all of this research, I come across words that I did not even know, like words from the language that no longer exist. And that's because nobody uses it anymore. So, this is one thing, just like the masquerade, the festivals I mentioned, the death of language and the colonial adaptation of languages. For instance, Enugu, where I come from, is Enugu, on the hill. But the colonial master changed it to Enugu, and that is what Nigeria government exists in today. We have Okunano, 4 fires, but they spell it as in awkward, like AW. So even the names of our communities are affected. The names of our streams, names of our spaces, they are all affected in terms of language problems. So curation of this language, which I have been doing that was actually what brought me to museum studies, to find out how do I curate the language and the chants, because the Igbo knowledge is embedded in the language. For instance, the proverbs. We don't do the proverbs with the English language, but that is where we have all the knowledge. And our folk songs, our chants, and all of this, which, like I said, the masquerade speak in these languages. And because the languages are being lost, and even when they are speaking, the person listening to them are not hearing what they are saying. They don't understand what they are saying. It becomes a problem. So what happens when I am chanting, and an Igbo person is sitting and listening to me, but not understanding what I am saying? That becomes even a bigger problem. So while we dig into all of this, restoration of our languages is something that we've been working on. And 2 years ago, it wasn't like this, but I'm so happy today that the awareness is massive now. There is a return. There is a callback. People are beginning to take actions. People are beginning to teach their children. People abroad, you see people everywhere in the world are now making efforts, which wasn't like that before. And then answering of our names. Nobody wants to answer any indigenous name anymore. But now there is like a kind of reawakening. People are now giving their children indigenous names, trying to teach them the languages. So it's a process. But I will tell you that it is progressive, because if it is not, I will not be here today. That process is progressive and it is bearing good results, and we just continue to do it. Unfortunately, nobody pays. People who advocate for these things don't get paid. The government will not pay you. The Igbo people will not come together, gather money and give it to you, which is a problem, because I have seen most people that I started with that dropped along the, because you need to pay bills. But while you are advocating, curating and all of this, who funds it? So that's another conversation that we need to be having in a lot of the cultural institutions, and where we meet some of these our gatekeepers, or societal gatekeepers or leaders, who unfortunately, when it comes to the political class, they are not interested. Today, Igbo language in the whole of Igbo land is now optional in school, but the schools will be doing French compulsory. So
I'm wondering about the language. Are there dictionaries and grammars? Are all the tools there to preserve the language?
yes,
They are.
yes, there are dictionaries today. There are loads and loads of Igbo books today. There are language curatorial books today existing. Again, because the fundings are not there, they are not readily accessible to everybody. Some of them are expensive, because when you take how many years to bring dictionary together and publish it yourself, you want to charge money for it. So these are the challenges that we continue to face. But yes, people are making effort, and I really appreciate them for that.
Mine would be a little on the emotional part of it. Like, as an Igbo woman, I am from Edo State, where most of the African artifacts that were stolen from. Yeah, majority of the things you find in British Museum, Germany, even here in the United States, were taken from Edo State. Now, as an Igbo woman, how do you feel emotionally? How do you feel when you see this thing? Because I wonder how I'm going to feel when I go to UK, United, maybe any country, for example, and I find I know this thing came from my great-great-grandfathers. How do you feel when you see such things? How do you connect with them?
So I think it's the same feeling with every other person. There is a feeling of disappointment, there is a feeling of sadness and pain. But again, there is also a feeling of fulfillment that I've seen it. There are some artifacts I never saw until I was able to start traveling. Some of our community Ikengas are sitting in the British Museum. I was very, very happy when I saw them, to show people back home that they are not evil, see it sitting here. Yeah, because it's important. If they were told that these are evil, today we still have communities that burn their ikoro. Ikoro was the instrument of communication in the past. But today we still have communities that come together and set fire on their ikoro. And we still have those who are cutting down their ancient trees. In the name of the trees are holding their destinies. So it's a feeling of, you have a lot of mixed feeling badly. But again, as a professional, you begin to ask the real questions. Apart from the emotions, what do I do? How do we, solve some of this? How do we create awareness? While we are talking about, okay, they don't want to readily leave it to go back, but how do we create awareness that the people know that, oh, these things are here, and you can see them. And we can actually have conversations to get them back, and they are not evil. They are not what the interpretations have told you. You can actually appreciate your art. These were knowledges of our ancestors. Some of the Igbo art, when I see them, I wonder, like, how did they create things like this? Because I know my generation, we can't create it, right? So it's a people's knowledge that was taken. How do we begin to educate those who exist today to be that creative, where there were no machines, but they created intricate metal arts, intricate sculptures, intricate wooden, that's something you can never imagine. How did they do this? This is metal, and this was done when there was no machines. So today, can any of us do something like this without any machine around us? So this becomes the question, what was the message? How did they create this? What made them, even to our stools, we never had plain tables and chairs. They were always designs. Our doors that you see in a lot of the museums, especially the British Museum, you have the wooden doors in those times that have all these images and communication there. We don't have them today. You can't go to people's houses today and find them because the thickness of those doors, I don't know whether I would call it bulletproof doors, because how they are, it's something you can't find today. Most of the trees, which is why it is connected, most of the trees that were used to create things like the ikoro, where we have 9 feet ikoro, one instrument made from one tree, you can't find those trees in a lot of communities because they were cut down. All those gigantic trees were cut down, the mahogany trees, they were cut down because they were seen as the trees that held people's destinies. So the Igbo societies are designed in such a way that in every community, when you come to the village where you have a big tree, these trees have been there from generation to generation. But what we see today is a case where they come together, cut it down, set it on fire, and there is no trace of it. So even the arts and artifacts that came from these trees and all of that, they are all gone. The doors cannot be done, the ikoro cannot be done. So how do we connect to start recreating for this education so that there will be continuous knowledge, so that people will be aware of where they come from? This is the questions that we keep asking and the answers that we keep giving or trying to give. You know, but it's a, like I said, it's a process.
Thank you so much for this wonderful presentation. You're graduating in a few days. How do you plan to continue this beyond Syracuse University?
Thank you. So none of the works I've been doing so far is tied to when I start or when I end in Syracuse University. I came here for a purpose, majorly to learn how to curate, how to preserve in the professional sense. So I am that Igbo knowledge carrier or seeker who tries to not just be going around screaming, but also do something. And for me to do something, there are some professional skills that you need to learn. So I was particular on choosing a topic that I know would not just be, oh, write some few pages, submit it, and then you are done. So I want something that will become a book. I want something that will become knowledge that I will beat my chest and say, okay, I started this while I am here, and use the skills I got from here. And started this conversation with these cultural heritage spaces, the museums. They are listening to me today because I am in the Museum Studies program. So being a graduate of Museum Studies even makes it easier, because now I can have conversation as a professional that this is what I am doing. So I intend to continue. Yes, like I said, the funding is a challenge, but when the passion and the will is there, the energy to continue, even when it gets tough, is there. And hopefully, I'll also explore some external fundings and see how well. But I'll present this book to you.
I was going to interrupt you. Yes, I was connecting to that question. I know you have other interests in terms of your PhD research, but wouldn't this also be a possibility for a PhD research? And that could come with some funding.
So, two of you have.
These are conversations that have been had.
Yes. Yes. So yes, but again, I also still want to do the one on chanting, because just like the mask, it is almost the same thing with the chant. So the chanting is just like a continuation of this, because a lot of the researchers and scholars took the chanting from the language of the living dead or the language of the masquerades. So I also want to explore, because again, I am a practitioner today, and I want to explore continuation from this. How do I connect them? So it might be volume part 1 and 2 of the research, but yes, this is really, when I started I was scared, but someone told me you can, because I didn't know how to.
Then postdoc.
Yeah.
And you get some funding for that. So.
One of the things that we, I'm sorry, I don't mean to jump in. Did you have another question?
Yeah, I have a question. You did the mapping and you present the number of maps, but my question, during your research, did you find cases that the mask is sitting or putting in under wrong context or wrong category or
museums and how they present masks, some of them will just say something like Nigeria or Nigerian mask, or because I'm an Igbo person, I will identify it. But what happens when you go there as non-Igbo person? How would you know the origin and the information guiding that mask? So you just hear mask like Nigeria, and then you say of the Igbo. Now the colonial spelling of Igbo is even wrong. So I even start from there. So you see IBO or Ebo, which graciously they are beginning to correct it in a lot of the digital platforms today. So, and then like I said, most of them, including the museum I just finished my internship, posted it and wrote no. I don't know what that is. So when you write the wrong word, what happens to an Igbo young child who comes there to learn what the name of mass is in Igbo language and sees the wrong, because this is what we're talking about, the death of language. So you have the wrong name as the title of the work. How does non-Igbo and even Igbo people come in there and know that this is what this is called? Because you already damaged it by having the wrong name. And then when it comes to the information, because this was disconnected from the masquerades, you don't see mention of the masquerade or the festival. And this is something that in one sentence you can actually talk about it. You can actually say Igbo mass of the 19th century used for so festival in these communities in Igbo. It's something very simple. So when you talk about that, now you have connected the people to a festival. What is the festival about? Now when you put a link where when they click on that, they can find more information about the festival. So yes, I have seen a whole lot of wrong information attached to this mask, or even no information at all, where they tell you that it's just the Igbo people and that's all we know. So, but that mask is a masquerade. It's, like I said, there is nothing like mask. We have masquerades. So this represents a masquerade. This is Abo-Omo. What does Abo-Omo represent? When do they come out? What are the information used on them? So, very important. So it's something that I continue to kind of connect back and help this museum so that they will have holistic overview and even links where you can click and then you have full African knowledge of each artifact that you have. Maybe they will now give me the contract with thousands or millions of dollars. Because now I'm not focused on math, but there are other things.
Now this is actually to that point, this is one of the reasons why this kind of research is so important, because Amarachi has already found, even here on this campus, masks that are misrepresented, that that she has identified as potential Igbo masks. That when you have a research document like this that can actually inspire curators to go back and say, oh, because of these markings, because of what this researcher has identified, now I can more accurately describe my work. Now we are more willing to share it online. Now we are more willing to start a conversation with the Igbo people to talk about that idea of decolonization, repatriation. Like this to me is such an important domino in that process, right? So so thank you, Amarachi. Wonderful.
Thank you.
Thank you.